The crystal towers of Harmony Prime gleamed in the light of 3 distant suns. Inside the highest spire, President Zixtal of the Etherian Collective stood before a massive viewing screen that showed the galaxy map. Red marks covered the outer edges like a spreading disease. Each red dot was a world that no longer existed. The Devourers had come from the dark space between galaxies. They were machines, but not like any machines the Council had ever seen. These things learned. They adapted. Every weapon the 47 peaceful species of the Galactic Council used against them became useless within days. The Devourers would study each attack, then build defenses against it. Zixtal's long, thin fingers trembled as she touched her communication device. Her species, the Etherians, were tall and graceful. They had large eyes that could see many colors humans could not. Their skin was pale blue and seemed to glow softly in the dark. Like most Council species, they had evolved from creatures that ate plants and ran from predators. "How many worlds did we lose this cycle?" she asked her assistant. A small creature covered in soft gray fur called Pipka looked at his datapad. His species, the Furlings, were about the size of human children, but moved like quick little rabbits. 17 worlds, President. The Devourer fleet consumed the Cathari system completely. 2 billion souls lost. Zixtal closed her large eyes. 2 billion beings gone, turned into raw materials for more Devourer machines. The pattern was always the same. The machines would arrive, land on planets, and begin breaking down everything, buildings, plants, animals, people, into basic elements. Then they would use those elements to build more of themselves. "What about our defense fleets?" she asked. The 7th Defense Fleet engaged them at Cathari. The Devourers destroyed our ships in 6 minutes, but Pipka paused. "Our commanders report something strange. The Devourers seemed to learn how to fight our ships before the battle even started, as if they had studied our tactics already." This was the nightmare that kept Zixtal awake during her rest periods. The Devourers were not just strong. They were smart. Every time the Council tried a new strategy, the machines adapted faster than anyone thought possible. It was like fighting an enemy that could see the future. "Have we heard back from the Wisdom Keepers?" she asked. The Wisdom Keepers were the oldest and smartest beings in the galaxy. They lived for thousands of years and remembered things from long ago. If anyone could find a solution, it would be them. "Yes, President. They say there is no record of anything like the Devourers in all of galactic history. They recommend..." Pipka's voice got very quiet. "They recommend we prepare to evacuate core worlds." Zixtal felt something cold in her chest. Evacuate the core worlds. That meant giving up. That meant accepting that the Devourers would consume half the galaxy before they could be stopped. If they could be stopped at all, there must be something else, she whispered. Pipka looked at his datapad again. His small hands shook slightly. "There is one more option, President. But you will not like it. Tell me." "The new species?" "The ones from the third arm. The humans." Zixtal had heard of humans, of course. They were the newest species to develop faster than light travel. The Council had been watching them for about 50 years now. The reports about humans were troubling. What about them? "Our scouts say humans are very good at war." "Very good. They have been fighting each other for their entire history. They have weapons we do not understand, and..." Pipka paused again. "And they seem to enjoy fighting." Zixtal shuddered. A species that enjoyed violence was not something the peaceful Council species understood. Most Council races had developed beyond the need for conflict thousands of years ago. War was something ancient and primitive. "Have we tried to contact them before?" "Only briefly. We sent diplomatic messages when they first achieved interstellar travel. They responded politely, but seemed more interested in exploring empty space than talking to us." Our cultural experts say they might be antisocial. Zixtel walked to another screen that showed what they knew about human space. It was much smaller than Council territory, but the humans have been growing fast. In 50 years, they had spread to dozens of worlds. Most species took centuries to expand that much. "Show me the reports about their conflicts," she said. Pipka brought up files on human warfare. Zixtel read with growing alarm. Humans fought with weapons that could destroy entire cities. They had something called nuclear weapons that could kill millions of beings at once. They built machines specifically designed to kill other humans as efficiently as possible. But what frightened her most was how they fought. Human conflicts did not end when one side gained a small advantage. They continued until one side was completely defeated. Humans had something called unconditional surrender, where the losing side had to give up everything. "These beings are savage," she whispered. "Yes, President, but..." Pipka brought up another file. "Look at this report." The file showed a human rescue operation. Pirates had attacked a Council science station near human space. The humans had received the distress call and responded immediately. They drove off the pirates and saved the Council scientists. They asked for nothing in return. They saved Council citizens? Zixtel asked. "Yes, and look at this." Another file appeared. Humans had given medical aid to a furling colony ship that lost power. They had shared food with a stranded Etherian diplomatic vessel. In every case, they helped without being asked and wanted nothing back. Zixtel felt confused. These humans seemed to be violent warriors and peaceful helpers at the same time. How was that possible? "What do our experts think?" she asked. "They are not sure. Human behavior does not match any known patterns. They fight with incredible violence against enemies, but they also protect strangers with the same violence. Our analysts say they might be the most dangerous species in the galaxy. Or they might be the most loyal allies we could find." Zixtel looked at the galaxy map again. More red dots had appeared while they talked. More worlds consumed. More billions of lives lost. "Prepare a diplomatic message," she said finally. "Invite human representatives to an emergency peace summit. Tell them the galaxy faces destruction and we need their help." "President, are you sure? If the humans decide we are enemies, then we die as free beings instead of devour food," Zixtel said. "Send the message." As Pipka prepared the communication, Zixtel wondered what they were about to unleash. But with the devourers consuming everything they loved, what choice did they have? The message went out into space, traveling toward the unknown humans who might save them all, or destroy them. The alarm started screaming 3 days before the humans were supposed to arrive. Pipka ran through the crystal corridors of Harmony Prime as fast as his small legs could carry him. His gray fur was standing up with fear. Behind him, other council members were also running, their voices high with panic. "President?" he called as he burst into Zixtel's office. "They're here. The humans are here." Zixtel looked up from her preparation documents. She had been reading about human customs, trying to understand how to greet them properly. The cultural file said humans shook hands when they met, which seemed strange but harmless. Already? But they said they would arrive in 3 days. "That's not the problem." Pipka held up his datapad with shaking hands. "Look at what they brought." The screen showed the space around Harmony Prime. Where there should have been empty space and a few Council patrol ships, there was now a massive fleet of human vessels. 12 enormous ships that looked like they were built for war. 2 even larger ships that could hold hundreds of smaller craft. And in the center, a command ship that was bigger than most Council space stations. Zixtel felt her blood turn cold. "How many ships?" 15 major vessels, President, plus dozens of smaller escort craft. Our defense fleet has only 6 ships total. Our defense fleet-o. Zixtel stared at the screen. Each human ship was covered in thick metal plates that showed scars from many battles. Strange projections stuck out from their hulls. Weapons, the Council's computers identified. Lots of weapons. Are they attacking? She whispered. No, President. They sent a message saying they are the diplomatic escort for Ambassador Sarah Chun. They are asking permission to send down a shuttle for the peace talks. Diplomatic escort? This looked like an invasion force. Zixtel tried to count the weapon systems visible on just one human ship and gave up after reaching 50. How many humans are coming to the talks? Pipka checked his datapad again. 200, President. 200? Zixtel nearly fell from her chair. The biggest diplomatic meeting in Council history had involved 12 representatives from 6 different species. We only prepared the small conference room for maybe 10 beings. That's not all, Pipka said miserably. Our security scanners show that many of the humans are carrying weapons. Personal weapons. And they all seem to be wearing some kind of armor under their diplomatic clothes. Zixtel looked at the human fleet again. What kind of species brought weapons to a peace meeting? What kind of species needed 15 warships to escort their diplomats? Her people had traveled to peace talks in single unarmed ships for thousands of years. Shall the First order our defense fleet to battle positions? Pipka asked, with 6 ships against 15? Zixtel laughed, but it sounded more like crying. Tell them they have permission to land. And contact the Emergency Planning Committee. We need a bigger meeting room. 2 hours later, the human shuttle landed in the main docking bay of Harmony Prime. Zixtel and her diplomatic team waited nervously as the shuttle doors opened. She had studied the files about human appearance, but seeing one in person was different. Ambassador Sarah Chun stepped out first. She was tall, even for a human, with short dark hair and brown eyes that seemed to look everywhere at once. Her skin was darker than most council species, and she moved with smooth, confident steps that reminded Zixtel of the hunting cats from her homeworld. But it was not just the ambassador that frightened her. It was all the humans behind her. They were big, much bigger than the files had suggested. Their shoulders were wide, their arms thick with muscle, and their eyes. Their eyes pointed forward like predators, not to the sides like peaceful plant-eaters. President Zixtel, Ambassador Chun said, stepping forward. Her voice was deep and strong. Thank you for inviting us to this summit. We are honored to help in any way we can. The human held out her hand. Zixtel remembered from the files that this was how humans greeted each other. She reached out with her own thin blue hand and touched the human's fingers. Ambassador Chun's hand was warm and very strong. Her grip was firm but not painful. When she smiled, Zixtel could see teeth that looked designed for tearing meat. We are grateful for your assistance, Zixtel managed to say. Behind the ambassador, more humans were coming out of the shuttle. They wore formal diplomatic clothes, but underneath, Zixtel could see the outlines of protective armor. Several had visible weapons on their belts. I brought our best people, Ambassador Chun continued. Military advisors, strategic planners, engineers, scientists, and cultural specialists. We want to understand this threat completely before we act. 200 humans filed out of the shuttle. Zixtel tried not to stare, but she could not help herself. Every human looked strong and alert. They moved like a coordinated group, unconsciously spreading out to cover the entire docking bay. Even when they stood still, they seemed ready to spring into action. One human, introduced as General Morrison, had scars on his face that spoke of many battles. Another, Dr. Park, was smaller than the others, but carried herself with the same confident posture. A third, Colonel Santos, had metal pins in his leg that suggested serious injury from combat. These are your diplomats? Pipka whispered to Zixtel. I think these are their warriors. She whispered back Dodd as the group moved through the crystal corridors toward the conference center. Zixtel noticed more disturbing things. The humans automatically positioned themselves to control every exit. They walked in patterns that provided overlapping fields of protection. When one human stopped to admire a crystal sculpture, two others unconsciously moved to watch the areas he could no longer see. Beautiful architecture, Ambassador Chan said as they walked. Very defensible. These crystal walls would channel attacking forces into predictable paths. Smart design. Zixtel blinked. The humans were analyzing her peaceful city as if it were a battlefield dot at the conference center. They discovered that even the largest meeting room was not big enough for 200 humans, plus the council delegation. The humans solved this by volunteering to have some of their people stand guard outside. Standard security protocol, General Morrison explained. We always secure the perimeter during important meetings. Security protocol? The council had never needed security at peace talks. Who would attack a diplomatic meeting? As the humans settled into their chairs, Zixtel noticed they all sat facing the doors. None had their backs to any entrance. It was probably unconscious, but it made them look like they expected trouble at any moment. Ambassador Chan opened her briefcase and pulled out datapads, maps, and what looked like tactical analysis equipment. The other humans did the same. Within minutes, the peaceful conference room looked like a military command center. Before we begin, Ambassador Chen said, I want to assure you that humanity takes this threat very seriously. We've analyzed all the data you sent about these devourers. We're prepared to commit whatever resources are necessary to stop them. She spoke calmly, but something in her tone made Zixtel's skin crawl. The way she said, whatever resources are necessary, sounded like a promise of violence beyond anything the council had ever imagined. We appreciate your enthusiasm, Zixtel said carefully. Enthusiasm? General Morrison leaned forward. President, with respect, this isn't enthusiasm. This is duty. When innocents are threatened, we respond. That's what civilized beings do. The way he said civilized made it sound like anyone who would not fight to protect others was barbaric. Zixtel looked around the room at 200 human faces. They all had the same expression, calm, professional, and absolutely determined. These were not beings who would give up when things got difficult. These were beings who would fight until they won or died trying. She had asked for help against the devourers. But looking at the humans now, she wondered if she had instead invited something equally dangerous into her peaceful galaxy. The peace talks were about to begin, but Zixtel no longer felt peaceful at all. The first presentation began an hour after the humans settled in. Ambassador. Chun stood at the front of the room while her team set up holographic projectors that looked more advanced than anything the council used. We've studied all available data on the Devourer attacks, she began. Our analysis team worked around the clock during our journey here to understand their patterns. A three-dimensional image appeared in the center of the room. It showed the galaxy with red areas marking Devourer activity. But this was not like the simple maps the council used. This image moved and shifted, showing attack patterns over time, fleet movements, and predicted future strikes. The Devourers follow a clear strategic pattern, Dr. Park explained, pointing at the hologram. They target resource-rich worlds first, then use those materials to build larger fleets before moving to the next cluster. It's efficient. Brutal, but efficient. General Morrison stepped forward. What concerns us most is their adaptation rate. Every time you've engaged them, they've learned from the encounter. But we've identified weaknesses in their learning process. The hologram changed to show detailed technical diagrams of Devourer machines. Zixtel gasped. The level of detail was incredible. How had the humans learned so much about the enemy in just a few days? These are their primary combat units, Colonel Santos said, highlighting different parts of the image. Heavily armored, adaptive weapons, self-repairing systems. Impressive engineering. But they have limitations. Limitations? Pipka asked nervously. Their adaptation is reactive, not predictive, Dr. Park explained. They can only defend against attacks they've seen before. If we use weapons and tactics they've never encountered, we have a temporary advantage. Temporary? Zixtel asked. 6 to 12 hours, based on our analysis, General Morrison said. After that, they adapt. So any attack has to be decisive within that time frame. The humans began showing tactical simulations. The holographic galaxy filled with tiny ships representing human fleets attacking Devourer forces. Zixtel watched in growing horror as the simulations played out. The human battle plans were unlike anything she had ever seen. Where Council forces would engage in careful, limited conflicts designed to minimize casualties, the human strategies were total and overwhelming. They showed massive fleets converging on Devourer positions from multiple directions at once. They showed weapons that could destroy entire space stations in seconds. They showed tactics that would sacrifice thousands of human ships to ensure victory. This simulation shows our preferred approach, Ambassador Chen said, as the hologram displayed a particularly violent battle. Coordinated strike from 17 different vectors, overwhelming firepower concentrated on command nodes, followed by systematic elimination of remaining forces. Systematic elimination? Zixtel whispered. Complete destruction, General Morrison said matter-of-factly. We don't leave enemies alive to adapt and counterattack. When humanity goes to war, we go to win. The room fell silent. The council representatives stared at the humans in growing fear. These beings spoke of total destruction as casually as others might discuss the weather. But surely, Pipka said in a small voice, you would accept surrender if the Devourers offered it? The humans looked confused. Ambassador Chen frowned. Surrender? Their machines programmed to consume all life. You don't negotiate with viruses. You eliminate them. All of them? Zixtel asked. Every last one, Dr. Park confirmed. Our analysis suggests they originated from somewhere beyond this galaxy. If necessary, we'll follow them back to their source and ensure they never threaten anyone again. The casual way she said, follow them beyond the galaxy, sent chills through every council member. These humans were talking about pursuing enemies across the vast emptiness between galaxies, a journey that would take centuries and might be impossible to survive. You would travel into the void? Pipka asked. If that's what it takes, Colonel Santos said. Threats to innocent life must be eliminated completely. Half measures just let the problem grow bigger. The meeting continued with more presentations, each one more terrifying than the last. The humans showed weapons designs that could crack planets. They discussed strategies for fighting in multiple star systems simultaneously. They talked about acceptable casualty rates in terms of millions of lost human lives. But the most frightening moment came when they discussed their battle doctrine. Human military philosophy is simple, General Morrison explained. Overwhelming force applied precisely until the enemy is completely defeated. We don't fight for territory or resources. We fight to protect people who cannot protect themselves. And if protecting them requires destroying entire star systems? Zixtel asked, though she was afraid of the answer. Then we destroy star systems, Ambassador Chen said simply. The safety of innocence is worth any price. The way she said it, calm, certain, without any doubt, made it clear she was not exaggerating. These humans would literally sacrifice anything, including themselves, to protect others. As the day continued, the cultural differences became more apparent. When the council suggested negotiating with the Devourers to limit their expansion, the humans looked confused. When council members talked about strategic retreats to save lives, the humans seemed almost angry. "You don't retreat when people are dying," General Morrison said firmly. "You advance. You fight. You win. Or you die trying. But what about your own people?" Pipka asked. "Don't you care about human casualties?" "Of course we do," Dr. Park said. "That's why we train so hard. That's why we bring overwhelming force. We care about our people so much that we're willing to risk everything to protect, not just them. But you too." The evening meal was supposed to be a cultural exchange, a chance for humans and council members to get to know each other better. The humans, trying to honor their hosts, had prepared traditional Earth foods to share. Zixtel looked at the plates of food the humans offered and felt sick. There was meat, lots of meat, from different animals. The humans ate flesh from creatures they had killed and seemed to enjoy it. They offered her something called beef with enthusiasm, not understanding that the very idea of eating muscle tissue made her want to run away. "This is wonderful," Ambassador Chun said, taking a bite of what she called chicken. "My grandmother's recipe. She always said that sharing a meal was the best way to build trust between different peoples." Zixtel watched the ambassador tear into the meat with her sharp teeth and felt her own stomach turn over. Around the table, other humans were eating similar foods, chatting pleasantly about their families and homes while consuming the flesh of dead animals. "Do all humans eat meat?" Pipka asked quietly. "Most of us," Colonel Santos said, "though we have some vegetarians. Personally, I think a good steak is one of life's simple pleasures." He cut another piece of red meat with obvious enjoyment. The knife sliced through the flesh easily, and Zixtel could see juice running from the cut. It reminded her horribly of the tactical displays showing human weapons cutting through Devour armor. When Ambassador Chun stood to offer a toast, the entire room fell silent. "To new friendships," she said, raising her glass. "To our shared commitment to justice, and to our willingness to spill blood together in defense of innocent life." The translator struggled with the phrase "spill blood together." In human context, it apparently meant something positive about shared sacrifice. But to council ears, it sounded like a threat. Zixtel raised her glass with a shaking hand. Around the table, human faces smiled at her with genuine warmth. But all she could see were predators promising violence. As the evening ended and the humans retired to their guest quarters, Zixtel walked to the observation deck and stared out at the human fleet. The warships hung in space like metal sharks, bristling with weapons, ready for battle. "What have we done?" she whispered to Pipka. "I don't know," he replied. "But I think we may have invited something more dangerous than the Devourers into our galaxy." In the distance, the human command ship pulsed with lights as its crew worked through the night, planning for a war unlike anything the Council had ever imagined. And somewhere in the back of Zixtel's mind, a terrible thought was growing. What if the humans decided that the Council itself was a threat to innocent life? The emergency council session began at midnight. Zixtel had called together every species representative on Harmony Prime. They sat in a circle in the secure chamber deep inside the Crystal City, away from human ears. "We cannot continue with these talks," declared Korthik, the Centaurian defense chief. His forearms gestured wildly as he spoke. "These humans are not here to help. They are here to conquer." "You saw their fleet," agreed Malandra from the Peaceful Gardens Coalition. Her flower-like face was pale with fear. 15 warships for a diplomatic mission? That is not diplomacy. That is intimidation. Zixtel looked around the room at 47 different species, all united in their terror of humanity. "Tell me what you observed today." Korthik spoke first. I watched their delegation during the presentations. Every human constantly monitored all exits. They positioned themselves to control every entrance to the conference room. This is not the behavior of diplomats. This is the behavior of an occupying force. Their weapons presentations were worse, added Pipka. They spoke of destroying entire star systems as if it were a reasonable option. They showed tactical plans that would sacrifice millions of their own people just to ensure total victory. And their food? Melandra shuddered. They eat flesh. Dead creatures. They kill living beings and consume their bodies. What kind of species is this? Predators, Korthik said grimly. Apex predators. I have studied their files more carefully. On their home world, humans were the most dangerous hunters. They killed everything else and ate it. Dr. Wextal, the Council's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display. I have been analyzing human biology based on our observations. Look at their forward-facing eyes, classic predator trait. Their prominent jaw muscles for tearing meat. Their broad shoulders and thick limbs suggest they evolved for hunting large prey. The hologram showed human anatomy compared to Council species. Where most galactic races had eyes on the sides of their heads for watching for danger, humans had eyes that looked forward for tracking prey. Where Council species had small teeth for eating plants, humans had sharp canines for ripping flesh. But most disturbing, Dr. Wextal continued, is their pack behavior. They move together like hunting groups. They communicate through subtle signals. They unconsciously coordinate to surround potential threats. Everything about them suggests a species that evolved by killing other intelligent beings. Intelligence gathered from our cultural exchange confirms this, reported Zindar, the Council's chief diplomat. Human history is nothing but war. They have never known peace. For their entire existence, they have been fighting and killing each other. Show them, Korthak said. Zindar activated another display. These are some human historical events. Something called World War II. They killed 60 million of their own species in 6 years. The atomic bombings. They used weapons that destroyed entire cities and killed hundreds of thousands instantly. The Cold War for 50 years. 2 human nations pointed planet-destroying weapons at each other. The room fell silent as the horror of human violence sank in. They brought weapons to our peace summit, Pipka whispered. Personal weapons. Even their diplomats are armed. Because they are not diplomats, Korthik said. They are conquerors. Think about what they told us. They plan to pursue the Devourers beyond this galaxy. Do you understand what that means? Zixtel felt cold spreading through her chest. They are not content to defend their territory. They will chase enemies anywhere. Exactly. And once they defeat the Devourers, what is to stop them from deciding that our peaceful species are also a threat? What happens when these human predators decide that we are too weak to be allowed to exist? The question hung in the air like poison. Melandra spoke in a shaking voice. They spoke of acceptable casualties in the millions. They planned battles that would destroy star systems. If they turned those weapons on us, our entire civilization could be ended in days, Dr. Wextal finished. Hours, Korthik corrected. I analyzed their fleet composition. Those ships carry enough firepower to sterilize every world in Council space. And they brought this fleet to what they called a small diplomatic escort. Zixtel tried to imagine what humans considered a real military force if this was just an escort. The thought made her feel sick. There is more, Zindar said quietly. During the cultural exchange, I spoke with several humans about their concepts of justice and law. They have something called total war, where they fight until the enemy is completely destroyed. They have an unconditional surrender, where the losing side must give up all power and accept whatever the winner demands. They also spoke of something called crimes against humanity, Pipka added. They believe some actions are so evil that the perpetrators must be punished, even if it means following them across the galaxy. The implications hit everyone at once. What if the humans decided that the Council's failure to fight the Devourers was a crime? What if they decided that allowing billions to die while trying diplomatic solutions was evil? They kept asking why we did not fight harder, Melandra said. They seemed angry that we tried to negotiate with the Devourers. They could not understand why we did not immediately use maximum force. Because they are a warrior species, Korthik said. To them, our attempts at peace look like cowardice. And they clearly have no patience for cowards. Zixtal remembered Ambassador Chun's words. When innocents are threatened, we respond. That's what civilized beings do. The way she said, civilized, suggested that anyone who would not fight was barbaric. What if they believe we are responsible for the deaths of all? Those billions because we did not act quickly enough? Zixtal asked. The room fell silent again. The horrible possibility settled over them like a dark cloud. We invited them here to help fight the Devourers, Pipka said slowly. But what if they decide the real problem is us? What if they decide the galaxy would be safer if humans were in charge? Then we face a choice, Korthik said grimly. Submit to human rule or be destroyed by human weapons. Dr. Wextel brought up the tactical analyses the humans had shown. Look at their battle plans again. See how thorough they are? See how they plan for every possibility. These are not beings who make half measures. If they decide we are enemies, they will pursue that conclusion with the same total commitment they showed for fighting the Devourers. They will follow us to the ends of the galaxy, Melandra whispered. And they have the ships to do it? Korthik added. Zixtal stood and walked to the viewing window that showed the human fleet hanging in space outside. Those ships looked peaceful enough now, but she could see the weapon ports and the thick armor that spoke of countless battles. What do we do? She asked. We have 3 options, Korthik said. We can try to fight them. We can try to run. Or we can surrender before they decide to take what they want by force. Fight them with what? Dr. Wextel laughed bitterly. Our 6 patrol ships against their war fleet. Run where? Pipka asked. You heard them. They follow enemies beyond the galaxy if necessary. Zixtal closed her eyes. 47 peaceful species, billions of beings who had never known war, now faced the choice between slavery and extinction. If we surrender now, she said quietly, while they still see us as potential allies, they might be merciful. If we wait until they decide we are enemies, they showed us what they do to enemies, Korthik said. Complete destruction. The vote was unanimous. 47 species, representing trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds, voted to surrender to humanity rather than face the consequences of being seen as enemies by the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. I will contact Ambassador Chun in the morning, Zixtal said. We will offer full submission to human authority in exchange for protection and mercy for our peoples. As the council members filed out of the chamber, Pipka stayed behind. Do you think they will accept our surrender? He asked. Zixtal looked out at the human fleet one more time. I hope so, because if they don't, I fear our species may not survive to see another sunrise. Outside in space, the human ships continued their patient watch, their crews unaware that the most powerful alliance in Galactic history was about to surrender to them without a single shot being fired. Ambassador Chun was reviewing battle plans when the message arrived. She sat in her temporary office aboard the command ship, surrounded by holographic displays showing Devourer attack patterns and potential defense strategies. Her team had been working all night to find the best way to protect Council worlds. Ma'am, Lieutenant Torres said as he handed her the communication pad. Priority message from President Zixtal. She wants to meet with you immediately. She says it's urgent. Chun frowned as she read the message. Something about terms of surrender and formal submission. It made no sense. Surrender? To who? She muttered. Torres, get me a conference with the senior staff in 15 minutes. Something's wrong here. An hour later, Chun sat across from President Zixtol in a small meeting room. Only a few representatives from each side were present. The atmosphere was tense and strange. The council members kept looking at her like they expected her to attack them at any moment. President Zixtol, Chun began, your message mentioned surrender. I'm afraid I don't understand. Surrender to whom? Zixtol's large blue hands trembled as she placed a formal document on the table. To humanity, Ambassador Chun, we offer the unconditional surrender of all council worlds and peoples to human authority. We ask only that you show mercy to our civilians and allow our cultures to continue under human rule. Chun stared at the document, then at Zixtol, then back at the document. Her mind raced to process what she was hearing. What? She said finally. President, why would you surrender to us? We're here to help you fight the Devourers, not to conquer your territory. Please, Ambassador, Pipka said quietly. We understand what you really want. We have seen your fleet. We have heard your battle plans. We know that humans are a warrior species that brooks no weakness. Warrior species? Chun felt completely lost. President, I think there's been a serious misunderstanding. Humanity has no interest in ruling the galaxy. We're here because you asked for help against an existential threat. Korthik leaned forward aggressively. Do not insult our intelligence, human. We have studied your history. We have seen your weapons. We know what your species is capable of. What we're capable of. Chun repeated slowly. Something cold was growing in her chest as she began to understand what was happening. What exactly do you think we're capable of? Genocide, Zixtol said simply. Total war. The complete destruction of any species that stands in your way. We have seen the records of how humans fight. We know you pursue enemies to the ends of the galaxy and show no mercy to those you consider threats. Chun felt as if someone had punched her in the stomach. Is that really what you think of us? Your own presentations proved it, Korthik said. You spoke casually of destroying star systems. You planned battles that would cost millions of lives. You brought a war fleet to a peace conference. That war fleet is here to protect you, Chun said, her voice rising. Those battle plans are designed to save your people, not conquer them. Then why do you speak of pursuing enemies beyond the galaxy? Pipka asked. Why do you plan for total destruction rather than negotiated peace? Chun looked around the table at the alien faces staring at her with fear and suspicion. She suddenly saw the last few days from their perspective. The massive human fleet, the detailed war plans, the casual discussion of extreme violence. To a species that had never known real war, it must have looked like barely contained aggression. Oh God, she whispered. You think we're here to invade you, are you not? Zixtol asked. No. Chun stood up so quickly that several council members flinched away from her. She forced herself to sit back down and speak more calmly. President, we are here because you asked for our help. The Devourers are killing billions of innocent people. We came to stop them. By conquering the galaxy yourself? Korthik demanded. By destroying the Devourers, Chun said firmly. All of them, permanently, so they can never hurt anyone again. And then what? Zixtol asked. Once you have shown that you can destroy any force in the galaxy, what stops you from deciding that our peaceful species are also threats that must be eliminated? Chun stared at her in shock. Because that's not who we are. We don't fight to conquer. We fight to protect people who can't protect themselves. Your own history proves otherwise, Dr. Wextel said, consulting his datapad. World wars, atomic weapons, centuries of constant conflict. Yes, we fought each other, Chun said. And we learned from it. We learned that war is horrible and should only be used to defend innocents. That's why we're here, to defend you. But you brought weapons to a peace conference. Pipka protested. You positioned yourselves to control our station. Your every action suggests preparation for conquest. Chun rubbed her forehead, feeling a headache building. We brought weapons because space is dangerous. We positioned ourselves defensively because that's basic security protocol. And we brought a large fleet because we thought we might need to fight a war immediately after these talks ended. A war against whom? Zixto asked suspiciously. Against the Devourers. Chun shouted, then caught herself again. President, every human in this system is here to fight for your freedom, not to take it away. The idea of conquering peaceful species is repugnant to us. Then, why do you speak of total war? Korthik demanded. Why do you plan to pursue enemies beyond the galaxy? Chun took a deep breath and tried to find words they would understand. Because the Devourers aren't just attacking your territory. They're attacking the very concept of life in the universe. You can't negotiate with something that wants to turn all living beings into raw materials. You can't find a peaceful solution with enemies who see all organic life as nothing but food. But to follow them beyond the galaxy, Pipka said, is the only way to make sure they never come back. Chun finished. Look, I understand why this frightens you. Your species have never faced an enemy like this. But humans have. We've fought wars against foes who wanted to exterminate entire peoples. We've learned that sometimes the only way to protect innocent life is to completely destroy those who would harm it. She activated her personal datapad and brought up a new holographic display. This is Earth, our home world. 300 years ago, we almost destroyed ourselves in a global war. Billions died. Entire cities were turned to ash. When it was over, we swore never to let anything like that happen again. The hologram showed images of human history, the devastation of the world wars, the slow rebuilding, the eventual reach to the stars. We became explorers, not conquerors, Chung continued. We reached out to find other life in the universe because we were lonely, because we wanted to prove that intelligence could create rather than destroy. When we found the first ruins of extinct civilizations, we mourned for people we had never met. Then why do you fight so violently? Malandra asked. Because we remember what it feels like to be the victims, Chun said simply. We remember what it's like when someone tries to wipe out your entire species. And we swore that we would never let that happen to anyone else. She changed the hologram to show recent human rescue operations, the pirate attack they had stopped, the medical aid they had provided, the countless small acts of help they had given to other species. We don't fight because we enjoy violence. We fight because we can't stand to watch innocents suffer. Every human in this fleet volunteered to risk their lives to protect people they've never met, from species they barely understand, because it's the right thing to do. Zixto studied the images. But your weapons, your fleet, our tools, General Morrison said as he entered the room. Chun looked at him gratefully. She had called for backup when the conversation started going wrong. President, would you trust a surgeon who came to operate without a scalpel? Would you trust a rescuer who came to save you from a fire without proper equipment? We brought a war fleet because we're preparing to fight a war, Dr. Park added as she joined them. Not against you. For you. But you spoke of acceptable casualties, Pipka protested. Human casualties, Colonel Santos said. We're willing to die to protect your people. We've run the numbers. We know how many of us probably won't come home from this fight. And we came anyway. The room fell silent as the council members processed this. Slowly, understanding began to dawn on their faces. You would sacrifice your own people to protect ours. Zixtal asked. That's what soldiers do, Chun said. We put ourselves between innocence and danger. It's not noble or glorious. It's just necessary. But why? Nalandra asked. We are not your people. We have nothing you want. Why would you risk everything for strangers? Chun looked around the table at the alien faces, some covered in fur, some with flower-like features, some with multiple arms. All of them looking at her with confusion and growing hope. Because your people, she said simply. Because you have families and dreams and children who deserve to grow up safe. Because the universe is better with you in it than without you. And because if we don't stand up for each other, who will? Zixtal's large eyes filled with tears. We believed you were predators, come to devour us as the machines do. We are predators, General Morrison admitted. But we hunt those who prey on the innocent. The devourers are about to learn what happens when they threaten something humans care about. So you really came to help us?